mean, people are supposed to act like that this isn't true. I don't understand the point of trying to say, oh, there's just no way. No, there's a thing as far as physicality, athleticism, and look, we watched the W.
That reaction right there tells you everything you need to know about this debate. Two active NBA players just said something that half the internet is calling disrespectful, and the other half is calling obvious. Lonzo Ball and Michael Porter Jr. both went on record saying they could have dominated the WNBA as middle schoolers. And the firestorm that followed reveals something way bigger than just basketball skills.
Lonzo Ball says ninth grade Lonzo would go crazy in the WNBA. Michael Porter Jr. says it's just common sense. Michael Porter Jr. quote, "You know what's crazy? Pat Bev said that a WNBA team could beat the bench of a NBA team." I mean, he's on crack. Absolutely on crack. Lonzo Ball, quote, "I'm going to give you the most honest answer right now. I know."
Let's get the facts straight first. Lonzo Ball specifically said ninth grade. That's when he was over 6 feet tall and dunking consistently. Michael Porter Jr. went even further, saying 8th grade. And here's the crucial detail. He's not speculating. He actually played on the scout team against his sister's University of Missouri team when he was in 7th and 8th grade. That team included Sophie Cunningham, who went on to play in the WNBA. Porter said he was going crazy against them. This isn't theoretical. This is documented experience from an NBA player who literally scrimmaged against future WNBA talent as a middle schooler.
"I'm coming through the lane. No girl in the WNBA is doing that. I'm going back door, throw it up. I'm looking like Jordan out there. I'm just going to say, and I mean this respectfully, middle school down, I give it to the WNBA. Michael Porter Jr. is going to take it a lot further than this. Quote, "I'm probably going with 8th grade because I have real experience doing this. I played my sisters. They played at the University of..."
Now here's where this gets interesting. Porter drops a line that cuts through all the noise. It should be common sense. And that phrase is doing a lot of work. Because what he's really saying is that we've created an environment where stating biological reality has become controversial. We're pointing out measurable differences in speed, strength, and vertical leap somehow becomes an attack instead of just observable fact. Look at the numbers. The average WNBA player is 6 feet tall. Brittney Griner is 6'8", one of the tallest players in league history. When's the last time she dunked in a game? A'ja Wilson, 6'5", MVP caliber talent. Natasha Cloud, elite guard. These are world-class athletes, competing at the highest level of women's basketball. And yet dunking remains rare enough to make highlight reels.
Should be common sense. Common sense these days, right out the window, Michael. I appreciate common sense. I feel sometimes that's a loss a little bit. A little bit? Lost a little bit? Really? It's been vaporized like the Death Star hit common sense. Common sense is called Alderaan. They blew it to pieces. They've tried to.
Meanwhile, walk into any competitive high school gym in America. During boys basketball season, you'll see 15 and 16-year-olds throwing down dunks in warm-ups like it's nothing. The athleticism gap isn't subtle. It's not marginal. It's massive and measurable. And before anyone says this is about disrespecting women's basketball, let's be crystal clear about what this debate actually reveals. This isn't about skill. WNBA players have incredible basketball IQ, elite shooting mechanics, and professional-level court vision. Lonzo and Porter aren't saying these women can't play basketball. They're saying that at a certain age, male physical development creates advantages that skill alone can't overcome.
Sense is making a comeback. It's making a comeback. And there are people furious with both of these guys right now. That they're saying 7th, 8th, and 9th grade boys would destroy guys that ended up becoming NBA players. that if they went back to themselves as a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade player, they would crush these WNBA players. And Michael Porter Jr. just told you he was playing against WNBA players, including Sophie Cunningham.
Here's what makes this moment significant. These aren't random podcasters or hot take artists trying to go viral. These are professional basketball players who've competed at every level. Lonzo Ball was the 2nd overall pick in the 2017 NBA draft. Michael Porter Jr. was the 14th pick in 2018 and just dropped 7 straight games of over 20 points for the Denver Nuggets. Their basketball credentials are unquestionable, and yet the response to their comments has been predictably split. One side is accusing them of being disrespectful, asking why they'd even bring this up, suggesting they should be promoting women's basketball instead of comparing it to boys' basketball. The other side is pointing out that nothing they said is factually incorrect, and that pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone.
Brittney Griner is 6'8". When's the last time she dunked a basketball? I watch these games and I'm like, Natasha Howard, you can't dunk that ball? Asia Wilson, why ain't you dunking? The difference in athleticism is, I mean, come on. Let's just settle this. Get some of the 9th and 10th graders in a scrimmage against these women. Oh, it'd be ugly. I'd say look at Mikey Williams.
Let's address the elephant in the room that Porter references but doesn't fully unpack. He mentions seeing men dominate women's sports after throwing a wig on. He's talking about biological males competing in women's sports categories. And the results have been exactly what you'd expect from the athleticism gap we're discussing. We've seen it in swimming with Leah Thomas. We've seen it in track and field. We've seen it in powerlifting, cycling, and mixed martial arts. In every case, the pattern is identical. A male athlete who was mediocre or average competing against other males suddenly becomes dominant when competing against female. Not because the female athletes aren't skilled or dedicated, but because testosterone-driven physical development creates advantages that training can't overcome. That's the uncomfortable reality that makes this whole debate so charged. If we acknowledge that high school boys would dominate WNBA competition, we're also acknowledging that the physical differences between male and female athletes are significant enough to matter at the highest levels. And that has implications for every conversation about sports categories and competitive fairness.
It's crazy. LeBron, can you imagine LeBron? Can you imagine LeBron in all this? If they were to ever I mean, come on. It would be a serious misunderstanding if it ever happened.
Now let's talk about what happens when you try to have this conversation publicly. The response to Lonzo and Porter has been a perfect case study. You've got people saying they're on crack, that they're delusional, that they clearly don't respect women's basketball. You've got others pointing out that Pat Beverly recently claimed a WNBA team could beat an NBA bench unit, and asking why that comment didn't generate the same outrage. The double standard is obvious. When someone overestimates women's basketball relative to men's basketball, that's seen as supportive and progressive. When someone states the measurable reality of the athleticism gap, that's seen as disrespectful and regressive. But here's the thing. Neither approach actually helps women's basketball grow.
He would average 50 points over there. Michael Porter Jr. last 7 games, 25, 34, 24, 21, 25, 28, 32. 11 rebounds, 5, 4, 6, 11, 9, 6. Steals. He's got 2 7-steal games. It would be a massacre. And I promise you, there will be people that get mad and unsubscribe to the channel because of this. What? You've got to be kidding. Be smart. I saw this and was like, yeah, I'm shooting it. He's 1,000% right. 10,000% right, as that dude said. It would be a disaster class on the WNBA. If you took NBA players and put them in their 8th grade selves, 9th grade selves, and put them in a WNBA game, holy hell, fire and brimstone. Tell me what.
Here's what makes this entire controversy so frustrating. The WNBA doesn't need to be compared to the NBA to have value. Women's basketball doesn't need to match men's athleticism to be worth watching. The product can stand on its own merits. Elite skill, high basketball IQ, team-oriented play, and athletes who've dedicated their lives to the game. But we've created this weird dynamic where acknowledging differences somehow threatens the legitimacy of women's sports. We're saying that Lonzo Ball in 9th grade would dominate the WNBA is treated like an attack, when it's really just biology. A 6-foot-plus teenage boy who's already dunking, who went on to become an NBA player, would absolutely overwhelm professional women's basketball competition. That's not controversial, that's not disrespectful, that's just reality. And Michael Porter Jr. didn't just theorize about this, he lived it. He scrimmaged against college players who went on to WNBA careers. He was in 7th and 8th grade, going against Sophie Cunningham and other future professionals, and by his own account he was dominating. That's not speculation or hot take content. That's first-hand experience from someone who was actually in that exact situation. Think about what Porter is describing. He's a middle school kid, probably around 13 or 14 years old, playing on a scout team designed to prepare a Division I women's college basketball team for competition. The scout team's job is to simulate the other team's plays and provide a competitive practice environment. And Porter says he was going crazy doing it. Not struggling, not barely keeping up, going crazy. Now fast forward. That middle school kid became the 14th overall pick in the NBA draft. He's currently averaging over 25 points per game. But the point isn't where he ended up. The point is that even before his full physical development, even before he reached his athletic prime, he was already operating at a level that college women's players, including future WNBA talent, couldn't match. That's the athleticism gap we're talking about. And it's not limited to future NBA players. Walk into any competitive high school basketball program in America, the top-tier boys teams, the ones competing for state championships, would create similar mismatch, not because they're more skilled necessarily, but because the combination of speed, strength, and vertical explosion creates advantages that skill alone can't neutralize. Look at LeBron James as an extreme example. He's 39 years old, clearly past his athletic prime, dealing with the accumulated wear of 21 NBA seasons. And the suggestion is that if he stepped onto a WNBA court tomorrow, he might drop 125 points. That's not disrespect. That's acknowledging that even a diminished version of one of the greatest athletes in basketball history would be operating on a completely different physical plane than the competition. The speed would be overwhelming. The strength would be unguardable. The vertical leap would make every drive to the basket a dunk opportunity. And this is a version of LeBron who's lost a step, who's managing his minutes, who's clearly not the explosive force he was a decade ago. Imagine prime LeBron or prime Michael Jordan, or any number of elite NBA players in a WNBA game. It wouldn't be competitive. It would be a spectacle. But here's what's getting lost in all the outrage and debate. None of this diminishes what WNBA players have accomplished. A'ja Wilson is an incredible basketball player. Breanna Stewart is an incredible basketball player. Sabrina Ionescu is an incredible basketball player. Their skill, their dedication, their basketball IQ are all world-class. The fact that they would struggle against male competition that has significant physical advantages doesn't change any of that. We don't compare women's track and field times to men's track and field times and then claim the women aren't real athletes. We don't look at women's soccer and demand it match the physical intensity of men's soccer to be legitimate. We recognize that different categories exist for a reason, and that excellence within those categories is still excellence. So why has this particular conversation become so toxic? Why can't we acknowledge that Lonzo Ball and Michael Porter Jr. are stating obvious facts without treating it like an attack on women's basketball? The answer is that we've conflated respect for women's sports with denial of biological reality. We've created an environment where you're either pretending there's no athleticism gap, or you're accused of being disrespectful. That's not helping anyone. It's not helping the WNBA grow its audience. It's not helping young girls who want to play basketball understand what they're working toward. It's not helping the conversation about how to properly fund and promote women's sports. All it's doing is creating fake controversy around statements that everyone knows are true. Michael Porter Jr. said it should be common sense, and he's right. The fact that we're even debating whether professional NBA players would have dominated the WNBA as middle schoolers shows how far we've drifted from being able to state obvious truths. These aren't close calls. These aren't marginal difference. These are massive, measurable, undeniable gaps in physical capability that no amount of skill development can overcome. So here's the real question. Can we create space to acknowledge reality while still respecting and promoting women's basketball? Can we say that the WNBA operates at a different level of athleticism than the NBA without that being treated as an insult? Can we recognize that physical categories in sports exist for legitimate reasons, and that protecting those categories is actually what allows women's sports to thrive? Because the alternative is what we're seeing right now. People getting angry at Lonzo Ball and Michael Porter Jr. for saying something that everyone watching knows is true. People pretending that Pat Beverley's claim about WNBA teams beating NBA bench units is somehow more respectful, when it's really just less honest. People attacking common sense because acknowledging it feels uncomfortable. The WNBA deserves better than that. Women's basketball deserves better than that. These athletes have worked their entire lives to reach the pinnacle of their sport. They deserve to be celebrated for what they've accomplished within their competitive category, not defended with lies about how they'd match up against male athletes with overwhelming physical advantages. So was Lonzo Ball right when he said 9th grade? Was Michael Porter Jr. right when he said 8th grade based on his actual experience? They were both right. And the fact that saying so out loud generates this much controversy tells you everything you need to know about where we are as a sports culture right now. The question is whether we're going to keep pretending, or whether we're going to start having honest conversations about sports, competition, and what it actually means to respect women's athletics. Because respect isn't built on lines. It's built on acknowledging reality and celebrating excellence within that reality. And until we can do that, these debates are going to keep happening, and they're going to keep missing the point. What do you think? Are Lonzo and Porter out of line for saying this? Or are they just stating what everyone already knows? Drop your take in the comments, and if you want more honest sports analysis that doesn't dance around uncomfortable truths, hit that subscribe button.